Hello and a very warm welcome to you. Truly warm welcome, not just out of my heart, but from a very hot Central Europe. We will going to wait a few minutes. Let people join this Zoom room. And I can see some familiar names: Eric, Linda, Diane, Amy. Wonderful. Thank you so much for attending this very particular presentation. I can't wait myself to hear. Jim and some of my dear colleagues are in Chartres, France, because the Chartres Academy is in full swing right now. So that's one of the reasons why Jim is not here. But he's sending his warm regards to you all. And maybe I can actually start and others can join in. Well, my other warmest greeting goes to dear Janice Sealey, who is going to share one of her favorite book, one of her great books with us today. Janice is a brilliant, outstanding doctoral candidate at Ubiquity University. And Janice and her beautiful Samoyed dogs love the solace found in the wildness of nature, particularly in the forests, lakes, and farmlands of southern Ontario, Canada. Throughout her career, Jenny studied, practiced, administered, and taught nursing. She specialized in coronary care nursing and had the privilege of working alongside her husband, Brian, a cardiologist, for several years. Beyond cardiology, she and her husband loved exploring forest trails and sailing Lake Ontario together. Brian sadly passed away last year. Mid-career, as Jenny saw the science of nursing overshadowing the art of nursing, she turned to PhD studies in the field of education at the University of Toronto to research why this was happening. At that particular university, the field of imagination captured her interest, and ultimately, Ubiquity University drew her in to further explore the wisdom dimensions of imagination and introduce her to heart-centered living. Janice looks forward to sharing ways in which Neil Douglas-Klotz's book, Revelations of the Aramaic Jesus, the hidden teachings on life and death, has added depth to her studies in imagination and transfigured her heart-centered living. So over to you, dear Janice. Let's hear everything you'd like to share today.
Oh, thank you, Georgie. We're going to begin with my keynote presentation. So I'll share my screen. Okay, so I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement and invite you to acknowledge the land that you are on as well. I'm from Dundas, Ontario, Canada, and I'm located on the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee peoples, binding them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans and newcomers, are invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. Now, I'd like to invite you to join me in a centering exercise. The exercise is a breath prayer, and it's a modification of a prayer created by Christine Walters Paintner, who's abbess of Abbey of the Arts, an ecumenical arts-centered abbey. We will review the exercise and then we'll practice it together. So the breath prayer follows our inhaled and exhaled breaths. Inhale, I listen. Exhale to nature's song. So I suggest you find a comfortable position to sit in. Think of a place in nature that you love to be in. and let your energy drop from your head to your heart. And begin breathing naturally, following a comfortable rhythm while you're letting your breath take the lead. Now let's begin the prayer. I listen to nature's song as I time us for 30 seconds. Good. Pause and take a moment to appreciate what you heard. And then slowly come back into the Zoom room. So let's begin. In nursing and in medicine, we begin our presentations with a declaration. We declare our specialties and the agencies supporting our research. And knowing this, the audience is able to engage better with us, with the presentation and with the discussion afterwards. So today, as I review this great book, I hope to engage each of you more deeply by sharing my perspectives, values, and beliefs through a personal acknowledgement and later through story. Most of all, however, I look forward to your stories and comments and questions at the end of the presentation as we discuss the presentation. So my acknowledgements. From an early age, I deeply questioned my Judeo-Christian upbringing while enjoying the stories and poetry and inspiration found in the Hebraic scriptures. My mother and maternal grandfather, lovers of nature, taught me to find solace in the woods and forests and in the lakes of Ontario. And throughout my nursing and education career, I began to question Western assumptions shaping my experience, arising from the patriarchy and the scientific and industrial and technical revolutions. Questions prompting me to attend the questions that arose prompted me to attend graduate studies to explore the questions through the lens of art, science, and spirituality rather than through nursing. And during graduate studies, my original nursing passion, particularly for cardiology, expanded to encompass an understanding of the heart's complexity and spiritual dimensions. The heart has dimensions far beyond its role as a pump, as all of us likely know here. These studies awakened me to my real longing, a quest to find my soul. And currently, I'm piloting a teaching learning project with Heart Math Institute. And in a profound way, Revelations of the Aramaic Jesus speaks directly to my experience and my exploration. And I really wish to acknowledge I am not an Aramaic scholar in any way. I am a novice in this work. Neil has many followers who have followed him for over 40 years. And for example, when I took a Shift Network course with him, over 500 people attended that course. So if there are any Aramaic scholars in the audience, I look forward to your comments, questions, and even corrections to the presentation. And at the end, I look forward to you sharing your backgrounds, your experiences, ideas, and questions so that you will add a deeper understanding of the books for us. So the outline of the book review. Today, July 8th, we're going to look at personal context primarily. Context about me, which you've heard some of, about the author, Neil Douglas-Klotz PhD, about the book, and about Jesus, who I will call by his Aramaic name, Yeshua. Pardon me, I've got to pray. And I'll do a brief summary, and then we will go into discussion. I see my Zoom is giving me trouble here. Part 2, August the 12th, we'll look at communal and global contexts. About today, we'll look about today, how we are compared with Yeshua's day. We will look at what and how Yeshua taught in his day and the significance of his teaching for today. We'll also take a look at the critics and the creatives who respond to Neil's work. And we'll begin together in discussion to co-create the future together. Briefly, between part 1 and part 2, I will invite you to send your comments or questions that are not attended to today to me at my website, where they will be hidden behind a learning management system. And I will give you the details for that in the chat. That will help me determine what we talk about truly next time. And it will also give us a chance to communicate together about the topic. We'll learn together. So, Neil Douglas-Klotz is an internationally recognized scholar, writer, and translator specializing in the Middle Eastern spirituality, comparative Semitic hermeneutics, and the intersection of religious studies and psychology. He is particularly renowned for his pioneering work on Aramaic words of Jesus, Yeshua, Sufi traditions, and the spiritual practices of the Middle East. He's a poet, mystic, and musician. And his themes of his whole work focus on peace, interfaith dialogue, interconnection, interconnectedness, embodied spirituality, and wholeness. And to date, if I am correct, he's published 16 books. And I'm looking forward to his next book that he thinks he's going to be writing about spirituality and somatic psychology. We're going to look at the early years that he had in Illinois, his investigative journalist experience, his encounter with Sufis, his working with Matthew Fox, and his dancing with Yeshua. So in his early years, he was living in the outskirts of Chicago in a small village that was really farmland, where his father practiced chiropractic medicine. He came from a family of free-thinking Christians. They were deeply involved in holistic health, organic gardening, and discovery of wisdom. This thing is playing tricks with me today. Maybe I just best not touch my, there we are. And in his early years, he came from a multicultural family. So he was privileged to be brought up with listening and learning English, German, Polish, and Yiddish. So languages come naturally to him. He also attended a Lutheran school where he had to memorize large parts of the King James Version of the Bible and Lutheran catechism. And this proved to be of great benefit to him when he began Middle Eastern language studies. He enjoys mentioning that he was brought up with the Holy Trinity of three C's. Edgar Cayce, who's an American mystic and clairvoyant, his father's chiropractic practice, and Rachel Carson. His family was deeply influenced by Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring. It's a groundbreaking environmental science book exposing the detriments of biocides such as DDT. And he tells a wonderful story about this, racing home and hiding under blankets and pillows to protect himself when he heard that DDT was going to be sprayed over his village. So, what about investigative journalism? It plays a huge role in Neil's work. Upon graduating from college, he worked as an investigative journalist in fields of social justice, environmentalism, and consumer protectionism. During his career as an investigative journalist, he honed his research skills and editing skills, instilling in him a disciplined approach to research, commitment to uncovering deep truths, and a critical questioning mindset. Investigative journalism demands curiosity and skepticism and the ability to sift through evidence and conflicting narratives to arrive at a well-supported conclusion. Neil cares deeply about honesty and integrity in presenting findings, and the theme of truth plays powerfully throughout his book. Hence, I've come to rely on his interpretation of Yeshua's words and works. He beautifully bridges the factual truth and spiritual insights and offers practices for us to experience the insights. He holds historical and mystical dimensions in creative tension, allowing each to illuminate the other. I came, as I mentioned, to know Neil's work through 2 courses I did with Shift Network on his books. And through reading through the book, listening to Neil talk about the salient features of the book, and by practicing meditations and chants and singing with him, my learning took on a new dimension. I highly recommend Neil's courses and point you to his website, aboon.org, if you're not familiar. For there, he freely offers chants to sing with him, ways to pronounce the words, and even music scores for musicians to follow, and many other podcasts. He's very generous. He holds powerful institutions accountable and questions accepted narratives. And this deeply resonates with me because I found myself really examining powerful institutions and their effect and influence on my life, along with the narratives that I was brought up with. And finally, his approach to journalism has taught me much more about writing and bridging the gap between academic work and spirituality. His research is rigorous, it's transformative, and it's transforming my approach to academic writing and offering me a whole new dynamic relationship with the beloved, the one of many names, and with a Yeshua. However, fear-driven nature from the mainstream and personal burnout, he would work up to 60 hours a week, prompted him to leave journalism and turn to spirituality to find other ways of being, knowing, and finding truth. And at the onset of this book, in the introduction, he quotes John 8:32, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free." So that gives you an idea of the nature of the book. He did his PhD in religious studies and somatic psychology. So, to make a long story short, Neil writes, my doctorate in religious studies ended up combining ancient Semitic language hermeneutics, which we know as interpretation theory, and somatic psychology, body-oriented psychology, in order to be able to articulate an epistemology, a way of knowing that approached that of Yeshua. Religious studies taught him various ways of knowing, including transliteration, which we'll talk about later, movement, song, and dance. And the somatic psychology that he studied really is the body-centered approach to bringing mind and body together. Neil encourages at the beginning of the day to bend in total fashion onto the floor, putting your head onto the floor, in order to raise our hearts above our heads, and also to touch the earth. And in this way, you bring up the quality of the earth and what Mother Earth has to offer us, and the source of our being into our hearts. And the Semitic languages have a word for heart, but they have no word for mind. They truly experience heart-centered living. Upon leaving journalism, Neil initially turned to Sufism and wrote about it, and he held important positions in Sufi organizations. He has a Sufi name. He's married to a woman who's a Sufi. And he doesn't mention a great deal of this throughout the book. However, there are threads throughout the book. And after leaving journalism, he also simultaneously met Matthew Fox. And this is what he writes about meeting him. We met in 1986 and connected heart to heart and soul to soul, which he later related to a Sufi understanding of deep connection. And during his time, his 10-year tenure at Mass Institute in Culture and Creation Spirituality, he found writing by one of his Sufi mentors who had passed on. And in the writing, his mentor stated he always wanted to learn the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic. And Neil found himself wanting to, on the one hand, fulfill his mentor's desire, and on the other, he was curious about learning the Aramaic language. And Matthew encouraged Neil to do this. And he even supported him through the whole process, including his PhD. And then Neil wrote his first book, Prayers of the Cosmos, Meditations on the Aramaic Words of Jesus, published in 1990. And Matthew wrote the preface to that book, as he has written to the current book. Matthew's endorsement of Neil significantly signals to readers that Neil's background and groundbreaking work, I really should say, is worthy of serious attention. And I especially want to mention Matthew, as Ubiquity University is born of Matthew's Wisdom University. So I really feel a close connection to Matt as well, and I'm so happy he and Neil have that close connection. So the book. Neil's book is not about conventional Western theology. It is not about Greek or Western philosophy. And it's not about dogmatic interpretations of religious texts. Neil's book is about exploring original meanings, original meanings and mystical dimensions of ancient texts. He looks at inner transformation, embodied practices. It's about interconnectedness of all things and discovering wholeness. So, the outline of the book we should probably go through very briefly. He has a prologue and an epilogue in the book. And the book itself is divided into two parts, the heart talks and heart transmissions. The prologue emphasizes that in this worldview, people were not seen as separate from nature or the mystery behind existence. Rather, there was a profound sense of interconnectedness, inner and outer, self and world were intimately linked. And this sets the stage for exploring Yeshua, Jesus' teachings in their original context, the Aramaic context, where language, breath, and body are part of a living wholeness. And names of the divine are more like verbs than they are static nouns. And for example, the idea of the self and the larger self are not separate as we think of them today. They are I, one. The epilogue suggests that embracing this ancient wisdom can help us address contemporary challenges and guide us towards a harmonious and meaningful existence. And we'll explore that next time in August. And the interesting part is the prologue and epilogue follow the journey of consciousness and the notion of the self from prehistoric times through Yeshua's time to our time. It is a beautiful short version describing the separation of self, from others, and all of nature, and even from God. And this would create a wonderful course. I just love this particular topic, and it would be a fun one to do. The prologue sets a mythic, interconnected stage for understanding Yeshua's teaching, while the epilogue encourages applying this holistic view to today, both collectively and personally. Part one is about Yeshua's major teachings and way of prayer that he viewed through his heart talks with his students. And Neil writes, based on my own experience, one needs to begin with the seeds of Yeshua's teachings, his prayers and beatitudes. And if one approaches these with an open mind and heart, the rest of his teachings will reveal itself in time. In the part two, the heart transmissions, words are linked to actions through which he conveyed to his students a living relationship to reality, Allah, one that they could access after he was departed. I really recommend reading the prologue, epilogue, and chapter 1 before working through the book. It gives a better understanding of the book itself, the Aramaic words, and Yeshua's actions. And today we'll cover themes that lend themselves to a better understanding of the book. And before that, though, we will talk about yet Neil's recommendation that we read the book slowly. And as I read that in the book, okay, you do it slowly, I thought, great, this reminds me of my love of slow cooking. So, for example, when we make stocks for soups and stews and sauces, the ingredients are blended together and simmered for hours to create a rich flavor. So I quite like the idea of slow reading. It will add a rich flavor to our learning. And Neil writes, and this is significant, Upon first reading, you'll probably skip over large amounts of the Aramaic transliteration. Don't be concerned about this, he says. Trust that what you need to know will remain with you, and the rest will resurface or surface when you need it. And this is so. The first week that I took a course with him, it was a 7-week course, I thought I would never, ever grasp the ideas, and certainly not the word pronunciations. Yet, by the middle of the second course that I did with Neil, which was an 11-week course 6 months later, I suddenly found myself following the songs and chants with Neil. I couldn't believe it myself. And yet the concepts and ideas are still surfacing for me. And so I recommend that you spend hours at his website and time with him to really understand this book. So now we'll look at a few themes that I've chosen for today. There are many themes, but I'll actually present more in August as well. The first theme is ripeness. It's a whole new way of thinking about good and evil. So the Aramaic word for good is tuv, T-U-V-E, and the word for evil is bisha. And Neil points out that the two words are metaphors from nature, the cycles of nature, and are better understood as being translated as ripe or unripe. And this understanding encourages a compassionate process approach to spiritual growth and ethical living. It aligns with the rhythm of nature and recognizes what is right for one person and culture may be unripe for another. He points out that when Jesus speaks about the good tree bearing good fruit, the deeper Aramaic meaning is that ripe trees bear ripe fruit. And this reframes the teaching to emphasize discernment and natural timing rather than simple moral judgment. Ripeness implies timelessness, being in harmony with, and unripeness implies not being ready, needing more development. And I really appreciated these concepts as they called into the question a judgmental response that names a situation, action, or person as evil or good. That is, by judging by a fixed rule or dogma. Rather, if we view the situation, action, or person organically, it's much more discerning. For example, if a person is ripe and in harmony with all around, and we want then to encourage and support that person or ourselves or the situation. If, on the other hand, we see a person as unripe, then we consider nurturing that person, allowing time to develop. And that could be for ourselves as well. It's a much more kindly approach. And when the situation is ripe, everyone and everything falls into place to support the situation ongoing. And I'll give you an example of discerning time, which was ripe and ready for me to move on. Noting that Neil also wants us to use this book to look at how is the book affecting us experientially. How is it affecting our decision making? He wants you to make it personal. So I'll try and quickly tell this story. Towards the end of my career, before I went back to university, I was part of a management team and was asked with 3 other people to write the mission statement for a university hospital. And we did so. And we began with a statement we felt extremely passionate about: Nursing is an art and a science. In short, when that mission statement went to a meeting for ratification and discussion, all 30 managers in nursing supported that. They were very enthusiastic about that. But the vice president nursing stated no. Nursing is a science and it's not an art. Art had no place in the subject at all or in the statement at all. She was emphatic. It went to vote, and of course, it passed because 30 people voted for it. And it passed until we received an email an hour later in our offices where the statement was being vetoed. The statement was being vetoed by the vice president nursing. It had a terrible effect on me then and now. And as I sat at my desk and I reflected on this email, three things came to mind to me. First, the enormity of the power and control of patriarchal regimes. Second, how relying solely on evidence-based science diminished the arts. And thirdly, I remembered an experience in my childhood where I asked why we always said God the Father and not God the Mother. And I'll talk about that at the end of the session. And I began to see a big connection between patriarchal regimes, evidence-based science, diminishing science, arts, and our Western concept of God. And at that moment, that day, I lifted up the phone, called the academic counselor at the university because I was determined to go back to university to find out why this was happening. This was a right time, a moment that was completely correct. For from that day forward, I have met one person after another who has helped me with this, with the whole discussion of patriarchal regimes, etc. It was a ripe and good time. The next topic that we're going to quickly talk about, I just want to check my time here to see where I'm at, is Shem. The Aramaic word Shem refers to vibration, resonance, presence, and atmosphere, the essence of someone. It also points to an ocean of light. Whenever you meet someone, you meet them through their Shem. And if the someone is reality, the source of our being, this one is intimately present with us, yet cosmic, hence with us and around us. This also refers to the essence of all other beings. So when Yeshua met someone, he met and knew them through their Shem, as they knew him through his Shem, not through their words. And this had a powerful meaning for me. For on the one hand, my work with heart math, research in particular, demonstrates that the electromagnetic energy emanating from our hearts speaks to others through their heart. So it's a heart-to-heart connection. And it's also a connection with trees. Our hearts, the heart of the tree and the heart of us, we connect. And this also then added another layer of meaning to my dissertation image. My dissertation's on participative imagination, because the image is as you see it on the screen, and the heart at the center is in the middle of a double torus. It is completely surrounded around, above, and below by energy emanating from everyone and everything, including from Mother Earth below and from the cosmos above. And now when I think about it, rather than thinking about it just as energy and the impact of energy, I'm now thinking about Shem and the including vibration and sound and atmospheres and light and much, much more. So it's added immensely to my thinking. And one other point about this is that when Neil does breath work with us, he often asks us to breathe up from the earth and down from the cosmos as we breathe in one breath, up and down. And where does it meet? It meets in our hearts. So another concept is caravan. And Neil symbolizes our connection with those that have gone before us, with ourselves, and with those yet to come as a caravan. And everyone in the caravan, our ancestors and those yet to come, are moving along with us all at once. In this view, we are all part of the same field called Allah, usually translated as God, but these Semitic roots mean yes and no. They refer to being and nothingness as part of a greater reality. So, with this particular approach, suddenly the veil between my husband and I lifted because it lifted time and space away. And suddenly we were just all together with, and even together with those yet to come. That's quite an exciting way to think about it. And that's how Yeshua saw the world and how the Aramaic people in his time saw it as well. Check my time here. Okay, we're still okay. Neil Douglas-Klotz uses transliteration as the central tool in his engagement with Aramaic languages, particularly to help those of us who are English speakers experience the sound and vibration emanating from the words, the quality of the word that is sound and vibration. And this approach is rooted in the belief that sound of the original word carries spiritual and emotional resonances that would otherwise be lost in a direct translation. That's why it's transliteration. It's a different way of looking at it. And Neil describes this rendering as a transformative and embodied experience, evoking deep feelings and spiritual insights. I have experienced this time and again with this work. Transliteration also led Neil to offer a variety of meanings for a single word. I love that one word could have many different meanings rather than a direct translation that this is that. And when Neil began to work with translation and he began creating chants and songs from the words that he was learning from the Lord's Prayer. And when he did this, he found himself moving. And he has now added movement to the process of saying the words, chanting the words, singing the words. And later he even added dance to this. So that beyond knowing, just through transliteration, now knowing is through movement, song, and dance. And I thought this was absolutely exciting because what popped into my mind at that point was, wow, at Ubiquity University, we have all kinds of ways of knowing. Matt, he knows nature's ways, creating a retreat where we can be with nature and hear and know nature. Margot is looking at ways of knowing through goddesses and ritual. Georgie knows ways of knowing through Reiki and energy. Laura through silence and sound. Birdie through remote viewing and telepathy. Rudolph through darkness. Victoria through shamanism. Veda through water. Crystal through indigenous women's experiences. And Peter, Mary through word, W-Y-R-D. That became very exciting to me because Neil's book opens up multiple ways of knowing and the multi-dimensionality of each word. So throughout the talk so far, we've come to know a little about the dance between Neil and Yeshua, and hence a little about Yeshua. The book itself, to me, is mystical. The book joins the shelf with books by other mystics through listening to our hearts, our GPS, as Neil says at the onset of his book, and to me, the many secret languages of the heart. It's also a mystery story. It's a story unfolding the mysteries of the heart. And it's magical. For as we read the work, practice the chants and songs with Neil repeatedly day after day, we suddenly take a quantum leap into wholeness, into fully understanding what we're reading and experiencing. So I'll stop with a final story. And this is a childhood story of mine that is responded to in part by the very first line of the Lord's Prayer that we're going to listen to in song, a part of the total song of the Lord's Prayer, which is a 2-minute segment of it. In grade 1, I enter the classroom the first day of school. I find myself suddenly sitting at a desk in a row facing the front of the room, when a bell clangs loudly throughout the school and the teachers ask us to stand. And a male voice comes over a loudspeaker and asks us to close our eyes as he repeats the Lord's Prayer, "Our Father who art in heaven." I don't remember hearing that to today. I stopped listening to the rest of the prayer and said to myself, yes, I keep hearing about God the Father, but never God the Mother. And so I asked myself the question. We then sing God Save the Queen and sit down. We're in Canada. And I decide in that very moment, I'm going to ask my father why people only say God the Father. And after dinner, I asked him it. I said, why do people say God the Father and never God the Mother? And he looks at me and he says, God has no gender. That means God is neither man or woman. So I look at him curiously and say, well, then why do people say God the Father? And my father got a twinkle in his eye. He picked me up. He swung me around in a complete circle around him, popped me on the floor and said, I don't know. I recognized his honest answer and decided quietly, I'm going to find out why. So you can imagine the excitement I felt when I saw Neil's transliteration of the first line of the Lord's Prayer, which goes like this: O birther, Father, Mother of the cosmos, you create all that moves in light. Pardon me, this just moves me. So we'll listen to the chant here. I hope it works. so ends my portion of the presentation. Georgie, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Janice. What a way to finish it.
Yeah.
I just this music lifted me up. Thank you, thank you. I really loved how you mix the your deep research and your personal story, especially at the end. That was really sweet. Thank you. Thank you. I loved your presentation. I always, throughout this great books course we have been teaching, I don't know for how long now, I'm always wondering that why you, the presenter, actually chose this book, because there are plenty of books you have read. I can see it behind you. There are hundreds of books. So why this book? Why this particular book?
Well, this is an experience. When you suggested that I might do a great book talk, I thought, okay, what will I do? The first book that came to mind was an Indigenous book. It's Braiding Sweetgrass. I love this book, and especially for this area. It speaks from the Indigenous people in this area, the Anishinaabe, actually. And I thought that, and you said, well, take your time, take 2 weeks to think about it. So I did. I thought, you know what? I'm not even going to go through my books. I'm just going to let it sit and be. Georgie just said, take your time, so I'll take it. And at the towards the end of the 2 weeks, I thought, I guess we're getting to the end. And I went to bed one night at 10:30. And just as I lay down, I thought, I want to do the revelations of the Aramaic Jesus. That's what I want to do. I'm sure that's right. And so I said to both our dogs, come on, we have to go into the kitchen and we have to have a tea, have a cup of tea to celebrate. I'm going to do this book. That's what will work. And so I lit a candle on the table, got the tea going, and I said, Bri, of course, Bri's gone by this time. I think, Bri, this is the book. I know it. I know it. You've been telling me this, haven't you? And I'm in the other side of the kitchen, and all of a sudden, the candle light flame grew from 1.5 inches to 6 inches, 4 to 6 inches, and it just stayed there. It did not go down. So I said, oh, Bri, you agree. You agree. This is right. And it was a confirmation to me to do this book. So I stuck with the idea, and that's the history behind it. And of course, as you can see, it fits into my work as well.
Oh, absolutely. I can definitely see it. So while you were rereading the book and researching it and putting together your presentation, what were those aha moments or discoveries that were so unique? Please share those with us.
Yes, I have to just think about this. Actually, actually, just the experience was an aha, Georgie. Not
Mm,
just necessarily the specific things, the seeing, but I started to make connections. So, for example, when I was first doing the book with along with Neil, I wasn't thinking about my dissertation image.
mm,
I wasn't thinking that at all. But as I began to prepare and work for this presentation, I thought, oh my gosh, Shem. Shem fits with my image and it fits with everything I've been learning at Heart Math. So that was a big aha moment. And it's partly why I wanted to put it out today and not even next time, because that was a very, very special moment for me.
mm. And here is a connective question to this specific question I asked from you, that when I read a book, maybe an X amount of time, a few years after the first time I read it, I feel that it's not the story, but it's rather me who changed, because the way I understand it, I understand special points, significance, or meanings of it. Were there such revelations to you too?
Yeah. absolutely. Yeah. So how did yes, I did. So let's go back to the portion where I talked about um, Neil's time as an investigative journalist. That didn't mean a lot to me at the onset of reading in the coursework I did with him. I didn't really even think about it.
Mm,
But by the time I've had more time to work on my own work, and then I began reviewing this book, I thought, oh, yes, the way he approached um, his work as a journalist, an investigative journalist, means so much to me. So I agree with you. I had changed too, because as I had started looking at my own work and investigating my own work more deeply, that gave meaning to me, a different meaning.
mm.
So that would be another example of that.
Yeah, for sure. Now here is another point. It may sound a bit abstract, but we live in abstraction sometimes. So if the premise is that everything is vibration, then what kind of vibration imagination is?
Um, well, again today, initially when I thought of what is vibration, what is the vibration of it, I was looking at the electromagnetic field primarily as being very important because we would get information from the cosmos, we would get information from Mother Earth, interactions with one another and within ourselves. And I was concentrating on that because of my work again with heart math,
Mm,
looking at electromagnetic energy. Um, but now, as I said in the presentation, now it's a far bigger meaning, like vibration is also light.
mm,
Vibration is also multiple ways of knowing. It is multidimensional. And
mm,
so it that just has enhanced that work and that thought process greatly.
mm,
And it did remind me too of the work that I've done with Laura Madsen, because
mm,
Laura works in silence and sound.
mm,
And even in silence, there is the vibration of nature, perhaps, or
mm.
something else. It's silent. But is it silence or is it a surrender to the moment? And
Yeah.
so it has been, yes, that's that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Laura is with us, and actually, she left a comment in our chat saying that I love how you are listening to yourself as you learn from other teachers, Janice. Very inspiring and precious.
Oh, thank you, Laura.
And also, Sherry Stover said that I wonder what we would get if we crossed Neil Douglas-Klotz, who is drawing from the Aramaic language and roots, and William Henry, who is looking at the essence thread of Jeshua's teachings. What would your answer be to that or reflections?
Okay, so give me the first again because I didn't quite understand what that was.
That was Sherry Stover's comment that is towards
Oh,
the
I see it now. I see it. Yep, yep.
yeah.
I'm not as familiar with William Henry's work. That's the only, so I'm not sure what we would get at the crossroad there. So I would really appreciate, Sherry, if you'd expand that a little bit more in terms of,
Jerry, would you like to come on and maybe speak to us live? We can open your audio. Or actually, I can't. I need to have my dear colleague Georg to do that because for every reason I'm restricted.
I would,
Uh,
yeah, I'd love to respond to that, but I don't know that work enough. And this is the kind of thing I'm looking for. Whoops, there's a new message here.
Yeah, from Eric. Anyway, Sherry, if we open your audio settings, would you be willing to say a few words to us? Because then I can ask my dear colleague Georg to open your
She says,
audio settings because unfortunately Zoom doesn't allow me to do so. I'm just going to text my colleague. Because I'm sure that Jonathan and Eric, they've been sharing some information too in the chat. And while we waiting, hopefully my colleague will.
yeah.
Yeah, so we have somebody who would like to say something.
Yeah, Sherry
Who has
Stover
their hand opened? Eric.
Yeah.
Here's Eric.
and Sherry Stover. Sorry, the Zoom doesn't allow me,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
And Cherry. There are two Cherry Stovers here. I'm not sure which one.
Let's pick one.
Oh, there's
Hi,
Eric.
Eric, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, great to see you.
Hi,
Yes,
good.
let's hear from you. Share your reflections, comments, questions, anything you wish.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that one comment about with the Essenes, but my sense is they would have been very similar to what Neil Douglas-Klotz talks about because they were of the same milieu, the same time frame as Jesus, as Yeshua, and so they would have known Aramaic, or they would have had the same um, relationship to language and mystical reality. So I think it would have been very that mix Aramaic and William Henry, whatever William Henry knew about him. I don't know about that, but they would have been very much a match. It seems to me. I'm not an expert at all on Essenes, but I know a little bit about that dynamic. So that seems like a good mix to me. Not something that would be contradictory at all. And Janice, thank you for sharing. It was wonderful to hear your presentation, and good for you with your participatory imagination. And I totally resonate with that. One of the primary pieces of my dissertation was participatory consciousness. So I feel very much in line with what you're sharing here. And the idea of the vibration and the Shem, I like the word Shem. I've known Neil's work for many years. And that's one that I had forgotten or didn't know about. And that's great because the vibration, but it's also like here, even right now, our hearts are connecting. And with the vibrational piece and the resonance that we have, that we even connect via this, kind of technology. So I think that's a great piece to hold up and lift up. So thanks. Yeah.
Look at Eric. Thank you for your comments. I can't wait to read your dissertation. I've known you've been working on this since you and I were at the beginning together.
Yeah. We started at the same time, I think. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm so happy that you're finished and through. This is lovely, and I can't wait because we both had imagination as an interest.
Yes.
So I'm
Yeah.
so curious to see. And I
Yeah.
agree with you about the Essenes, because most of the Essenes were peasant people. And so they understood language the way Yeshua did as well. They weren't from the elite group that were more familiar with Greek and Greek in particular, not even Hebrew.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I agree, but I just don't know the author, William Henry. So I look forward to what Sherry will tell us about that.
Yeah. Good.
Thank
Henry,
you.
I'll let others get in. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Eric. And me too. I can't wait to read your dissertation. I
Yeah.
know it was promised to us, your major advisor, so it's coming soon. Thank you
Yeah,
so
I got a
much.
few comments back from Alexander, from my advisor. So I'm tweaking a couple of pieces these next couple of weeks.
Oh, wonderful one. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining. Hope all is well with you and your loved ones. And see you next month, please, if you
Yeah.
can make it. Thank you so
Very
much,
good.
Eric. Wonderful. And Sherry, please.
Yeah, William Henry. Hang on, I'm gonna have to get rid of the other one. Yeah.
Okay, Sherry, can you hear us? Hello, hello.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
William Henry is very much into esoterica. He leads groups to Egypt and to southern France, kind of on the Mary Magdalene tour. And I just listened to a 2-hour interview yesterday that he did with Next Level Soul is the name of the program. It's with Alex, someone or other. I'm sorry, I don't know Alex's last name. And he's done apparently, and I don't know how scholarly all of this is, but he claims to have gone back through the actual Dead Sea Scrolls. And his take on who the Essenes are is very different from what you folks have just said. He said that they were deeply into essentially creating a light body, that they, quote, lived with angels, that they, this is actually kind of goes with Edgar Cayce, because Edgar Cayce says that Jesus was brought in through the Essene group, I believe, and the Essene group was very interested in purification, and so they were purposely brought in, a higher being, that Mary, mother of Jesus, was prepared to bring in a higher incarnation, a higher soul, who would then be a teacher, a global teacher. So his whole take and interpretation, based on his reading of the Dead Sea Scrolls and probably some of the earlier Christian documents that got thrown out once Christianity got into bed with Rome, as John Philip Newell so aptly says, is rather different. I mean, he really sees Christianity and the teaching, Jesus's teaching, as this incredible mystical path towards a level of self-realization where you literally create a light body that would explain the resurrection and the transfiguration and all of those mystical things that happen at the end. So I've still got the video up on another screen. I'll put a link to it in here, and you folks can go play with that on your own and see what you think. But it's and I know, I mean, I'm familiar with Neil Douglas-Klotz. I went to a conference done by Matthew Fox in Denver, probably in the early 1990s, and spent several days doing a class with Neil Douglas-Klotz in person, where he was going through the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic and going into all of the root words, and it was great fun. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But this is a very different what William Henry is doing. And he's got several books out there on Amazon, though I think they're not in physical form. I think you can only get them as Kindle books. So limited. Anyway, that's all I need to say, and I'll drop the link in the chat for those of you that are interested in going off on, kind of this other tangent, we'll say.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining and for telling us. I must say that I don't know Neil Douglas-Klotz's work, but now that Janice, you're introducing him to me, I'm going to get this book, and definitely we read it in the summertime. Thank you, Sherry. And also, just anybody would like to come in and maybe comment live? Like I know that Chris left a message in the chat. Just watch the Next Level Soul. Very good, excellent. And Jonathan, as always, fantastic. He's been leaving messages as well. So if any of you would like to share something with us, viva voce, then please do so now. Of course, that you have a chance to do that in August, but I can't really wait to have the second presentation, dear Janice. And maybe just one thing while we're waiting for others to be brave enough to say something, is that you mentioned the slow reading. I really like that concept. That isn't that about that when we are captivated by the story itself, then we do slow read. Because when we're not captivated, when we're not taken by the story itself, then then we probably close the book and we leave it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. You lose a sense of time and space when
Yeah,
you're into a book that you absolutely love.
yeah,
And
yeah,
hours can go by and you don't even know it.
absolutely.
So I would agree, yes. And that would be a slow read for sure. Like, yeah.
And you become one with the book itself. That's what you meant. That that's what the time and space that stops everything, because you're just in that word, and you get into the book and the book into you, because you see yourself within the book.
Yes. And you forget self.
Yeah.
I really agree with you that you become one with it. Absolutely. Yeah.
So some people see, like, maybe connect with us as a special character within the book. That's why they taken in by the story. Was any such experience for you while you were reading the book itself?
Um,
Were you aligned with any of the characters in the book?
I became aligned with Yeshua.
Ah, wow, amazing.
And the reason being that because of my childhood upbringing and sort of far right thought, I always loved Jesus. I was horrified at the way he was murdered. I just couldn't believe that that would happen. And then I can't believe it's happening today either, the way people are being stoned and so on in different forms. Um, but I had become a little distance from Yeshua because of this and because of the disconnect that I felt. But through Neil's work, I have really aligned, like I've been interested in, I feel, oh my, I have a relationship with you. And through the dream tending work that I was doing with Stephen Eisenstadt recently, like 3 years of it, Yeshua suddenly came onto my dream council. So he encourages us to have a dream council that we set up. And now he is there. And even to the extent that when I was preparing this, I would make reference to Yeshua from my dream council perspective. And yeah, that's what I can say for now.
Thank you. I think this is just the best way to close this session with these amazing remarks. Thank you so much for this rich, amazing, beautiful presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm sure did so the attendees. And stay well, everybody, and we shall look forward to seeing you all in August for the second presentation of Janice's great book. All the very best to you. Take good care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you for the comments. I appreciate it.
Bye.